Welcome to Garden Plants with Jim Putnam. Let's talk Radiance Abelia. Radiance Abelia is an evergreen flowering shrub with a beautiful variegated foliage. Has a creamy white variegation with a green center on the leaves. This is a super compact growing variety. It'll reach maybe 2 to 3 feet in height and about as wide as you want to let it get. You'll probably see 3 to 4 feet on the tag, something like that, but I've seen these wider than that. That's super easy to control. I'll talk about that later in the video. I'm shooting this video in the winter so you can see that it is in fact evergreen and quite showy even during the winter time. This is a flowering shrub. The variegated varieties of Abelia, the flowers are white and they don't show up all that well, although the pollinators have no problem at all finding them. These will be, during the summertime when they're flowering, there'll be a buzz with flowers. Typically Abelia bloom later than other things. They won't, you'll have most of your spring flowering things will be in the rear view mirror, and these will start usually midsummer and they'll bloom right up through the fall. And so the pollinators have something, all fall long. Sun or shade, Abelia do fantastic in the shade, but not these variegated Abelia. They'll lose their variegation in the deep shade. So half a day sun or more, all the way to full sun. These can absolutely cook. Abelia just in general are super, super adaptable. But again, the variegated ones, I'm probably gonna lean more toward the sun. These are hardy in zone 6 to 9. One thing I'd like to point out, I'm in zone 7B in Raleigh, North Carolina. In zone 6, these will thin out a lot more. And so you may not consider them evergreen shrubs on cold winters in zone 6. Zone 7, 8, 9, no problem. They're gonna be evergreen through the winter. So where are we gonna use an evergreen, low-growing shrub like this with this variegated foliage? Well, anywhere we need a low-growing, mounding evergreen plant. If you have a foundation that's on slab, a lot of houses sit lower now because they're building them on concrete slabs, and we need super low-growing evergreen things like this. This is your perfect foundation plant for that. Along sidewalks, the contrasting foliage color, the variegation, looks great with darker green plants like the Leanne Clara that's behind it. These actually, across from this, I've got them dividing some evergreen plants from some annuals, and my annual flowers over here look great with them during the summertime. Both of them do a good job of bringing in pollinators. These also, when the new growth starts to happen in the spring, the stems have a bright red color. That's something I didn't point out earlier that I want to point out. That variegated foliage in the spring on that red stem looks great. The only place I would caution you about not using Abelia is probably right beside your entryway door, because they do have lots of bees on them during the summertime, and that can freak some people out. Occasionally, I'm planting them in my landscape to attract those pollinators. One other thing I didn't mention is the flowers are lightly fragrant, and like a lot of fragrant flowers and fragrant foliage plants, they are extremely deer resistant, rabbit resistant, that kind of thing. So that's great. And just overall, in general, pest resistant. Abelia definitely wouldn't want to sit in water, so just make sure it's a well-draining space. Mound them up a little bit if you think it might stay wet in between waterings. About the most drought-tolerant plant you'll ever purchase. Once these are established, they really don't need any ongoing watering whatsoever. That does not mean it will perform at its absolute peak, though. So I say this frequently. This is as drought-tolerant plant as you can put in a landscape, but if it gets abnormally dry, I would water it occasionally just to keep it in this kind of peak form that you can have this in, with it flowering and the beautiful new growth that it gets during the season. These can be pruned in the late winter. They bloom on new growth, so they'll flower during the summer no matter what. So if I need to get the edges of these, just any general pruning, all of these dwarf variegated Abelia varieties will get this spiky growth that comes out of the middle occasionally. You can cut that off any time of year. It doesn't matter. I get that question frequently. Just follow the spiky growth all the way down into the plant and cut it all the way out. So don't cut it just even with the top of the plant, or it will just come right back. Follow it down into the middle, cut it out. That's it. General pruning in the late winter, crazy limb pruning any time of year you want to. I fertilize everything in my landscape with a organic fertilizer in the late winter. Keep it mulched, keep the weeds away from it, and this plant will just give tons and tons of interest in your landscape. Thanks for watching.